as the Marching Hundred presents Indiana Fight!
We will begin. So,
great.
sitting here with Dr. Rodney Dorsey from Indiana University. Hello, Dr. Dorsey.
How's it going, Don?
It's going great. And special thanks to George Quinlan Jr. for giving us a space here today to record in what looks like the George Quinlan Senior boardroom here. So,
Oh, it's great. It's a great space.
oh, there's lots of history here afterwards, and you have my permission to take something. It's not it's not my house.
Yeah, it'll go over like a lead balloon, I'm sure.
So I know I gave you some prepared questions ahead of
Sure.
time, but I actually want to throw something else at you.
Sure.
Because I'm sitting in a Starbucks this morning, kind of prepping a little more, and I'm scrolling through your Facebook feed. The kids today call that creeping. But what I wrote down on that, and what I'd love you to start with, if you wouldn't mind, is that I'm going through your Facebook feed and loving it, and it looks like an absolute celebration of friendships and connections. And I mean, it just looks like you're everywhere and you've met everyone and everyone's happy and there's some great things going on. I mean, tell me about that, where, you know, I guess life has taken you, music has taken you, and maybe just some of these friendships, connections.
Yeah. Well, it's very funny. If someone had told me, you know, way back when I started, maybe in music ed major, started in band, that you're going to be teaching at Indiana University, I probably would have laughed. So my journey actually started. I mean, I started clarinet in 4th grade, and I didn't start at the beginning of the year. I started halfway through the year.
Okay.
My school was K through 12. I went to the University of Florida's laboratory school, they called them at the time. And my friends were getting out of class to do band. And I told my mom I wanted to play an instrument, but this social thing got me more serious about it and with more urgency. So, you know, I started playing clarinet in 4th grade, grew up in Florida, and really never left band. So the thing I like about social media is you can keep up with friends, former students, and just kind of see what they're doing and see how they are. And I am just as proud of former high school students of mine who are not music majors as I am of the ones that have gone into music. Mm-hmm. You know, the ones that are medical doctors and all. I'm just as proud of them as I am, you know, the high school band director who was in my group. So, you know, my feed is kind of, it's less about look at me and what I'm doing, sure, as it is about, man, look at what this student is doing, or this former colleague. And so that's what it's all about, really.
And that's what I took from it too, is that there wasn't a lot of look what I did today. Yeah. I don't think there was any of that.
No.
There wasn't any of look what I did today, or guess what, I get to conduct the Indiana University band. You know, no one would blame you if that was up there. Yeah. But that was just cool. It's like post after post after post. I'd say there was a ratio. It was like 6 posts about somebody else, and then 1 post about a wine tasting, or something like that.
Yeah, that was when I was in Oregon. That was nice. It was really great living out there. Yeah.
So if we can go back and
sure,
talk a little bit then about those timeline bio things from the beginning. You grew up in Florida. You start band about halfway through the year. You were
halfway
saying?
through 4th grade.
Okay.
My school, I forgot to tell you, was K through 12.
Yeah.
So I am what they call a lifer.
Okay.
K through 12, and actually a small handful of people I graduated with, I actually went to nursery school with.
Oh my goodness.
So it's pretty funny. So, you know, I did that, and growing up, since I grew up in Gainesville, University of Florida was there. So literally I always thought, oh, I'll just go to the University of Florida. It's right here in town. No problem. Until one summer I went to summer music camp at Florida State. And if you know anything about Florida rivalries. Florida and Florida State is huge.
Okay.
So from birth until the summer before my senior year, I was conditioned to think everything about Florida State was terrible. FSU songs is terrible. This is bad. Bad. So I go to music camp there and I go, I think this is a good school. And so I go back to Gainesville and I knew a lot of students at the University of Florida because I took lessons from the clarinet teacher there. And so I got them away from their other friends and I said, yeah, is Florida State a good school? And they're like, yeah, it's a good school. Okay, thank you. That's all I need. I won't quote you. So I wound up going to Florida State, and it was familiar in that my dad grew up in Tallahassee. So we had gone to Tallahassee a number of times to see relatives. My mom graduated from Florida A&M University in Tallahassee. So Tallahassee was familiar enough. It was far enough away from home that I was away from home,
Sure.
2.5 hours away. But if anything horrible happened, I could get home quickly or my folks could get to me. So that's where I did my undergrad, and it was perfect timing. It was good for me to be at Florida State at that time. The director of bands at the time was Jim Croft. And Dr. Croft, if he walked in here right now, you would feel like you've known him your whole life within 15, 20 seconds. And just very charismatic, wonderful musician. So I learned a ton from him. And my freshman clarinet teacher was Fred Ormond. And life is very funny because Fred Ormond was there my freshman year. He left to go teach at the University of Michigan my sophomore year, and Frank Kowalski came. And when I went to interview at the University of Michigan, Fred Ormond was in the room for my interview. And then the next year he retired. So I told him I would not move to Kansas City because he would have to leave again. But it was just a great place for me to be at the time. And the school's grown so much now. Sure. I barely recognize it. So I was there for 5 years. And then my first job, high school teaching job, was at Rickards High School in Tallahassee. I taught there for 3 years. Left there, did a master's at Northwestern in 91, 92 with John Painter. And after that, I went to teach in Georgia for a year. And then a new high school opened up in Florida, could be closer to home, went back to Lakeland, Florida, taught at George Jenkins High School, and then from there did the whole college thing after that. You know, it's funny, whenever I lay out where I've taught, it almost sounds like I can't hold a job. That's why I stopped at, now I'm teaching college.
Yeah. But that's kind of the typical trajectory for someone that has their eyes on a college position, correct?
Yes, it is. You know, get some experience teaching high school. And there's a couple of ways in the college teaching area. And one of them I started doing athletic bands first. Okay. Or you could be a director of bands at a smaller school. Or if you're really lucky, you can get a sweet spot job at a big school where you're an associate director. Okay. And you don't have athletic band responsibilities or director of bands administrative responsibilities. That's nice.
Sure. And I'm sure, you know, from people I've talked to that love the athletic director thing, they love it, but the time
a lot of time
is insane, right? And you're kind of the face of the band program. And I'm sure
you are.
You know,
yes, you
director
are.
of bands might like I hear that sometimes, but I'm sure they understand it.
No, you talk to people and you go, I work at the University of Michigan. Oh, the Michigan Marching Band. We love it. And awesome. Yeah. Great. I mean, more people will see marching bands in one Saturday than will see my group in a number of years. Yeah. And, you know, it's great.
So if we can skip back a little bit.
Sure.
This is just to make me feel better. Mm-hmm. Your first job.
Yes.
Is there anything crazy that kind of happened or some surprises your first 2 or 3 years in that job that, you know, because again, when we talk to people today, like, you know, they got it together. At least that's what it looks like, right? But I think all of us at some point, if you can go back and you look, you're like, holy cow, I can't believe that happened.
You know, my general attitude is I feel like I would like to go back to all the students that were in my band my first year and apologize to them. I do. I mean, I think, us higher ed people, I think we educate teachers to the point where we hope they do no harm.
Okay.
My wife is a nurse. So she worked with a spine surgeon here in the Chicago area for 20 some odd years. And I think about how much time it takes for someone to be a doctor. Pre-med, med school, internship, fellowships. It takes years. And I was in school for 5 years to be a band director.
Yeah.
It's not enough time. So you're trying to figure out how to teach. You're trying to figure out how to relate to and get to know high school students that are actually your students. When you student teach, you're borrowing a band. And I was very lucky, man. When I student taught, I got to do a lot. Okay. But it was Terry Patishall's program. So you're trying to figure out everything. And the biggest surprises to me when I started was not all of my students were in band because they love music.
Yeah.
And I was just floored by that. If you can't play your part, I help you devise strategies to practice it, but day after day after day, you still can't play it. And I think it's because you're not practicing.
Sure.
So then you start digging. Well, if you're not practicing, am I not motivating you enough to practice? And then it's, well, my mom's making me be in band. Oh, okay. I really wasn't prepared for that. So then you have to figure out, okay, where can I meet the student where they are to take them where I want them to be? And so that was shocking to me when I first started. One of the biggest surprises was, I'll never forget this. One of my students comes up to me and says, "Hey, Mr. Dorsey, when are the buses leaving for the football game next week?" I hadn't ordered buses. Totally hadn't ordered buses. I went, "I don't know, Don. I'll let you know." And I went, "Oh my God," because all of our we didn't have a stadium on our campus. It was it wasn't far, but still we had to bus. Hadn't ordered buses. Thank God I didn't miss and whiff so bad that it's, "All right, everybody, have your parents drop you off at the stadium." But that was one. And early on that I thought, oh no.
And it's almost never musical things, right?
You're exactly right. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because in addition to the, kids in band for all sorts of reasons, I was also shocked at how much of my day was non-musical. Totally non-musical. At least when the bell rang and I took roll and we started playing, it was literally like, okay, I feel like I can do this.
Sure.
And you're right. I was shocked.
Did that shift as you went along and you got and you prioritized it, and maybe you put more time towards the music, or did the time stay the same and you just got better at those parts and became more efficient?
I think it's a little of both.
Okay.
You get better at, okay, do I really need to be the person that takes the role? I know I'm ultimately responsible for it, but can this student at least take role? Or as I get to know my students better, can I just go who's not here, bing, bing, bing?
Sure.
But first it was, Don, is Don here? Okay, next. But man, time's precious. Sure. So yeah.
What can we do as if I host a student teacher, if you're preparing teachers, what do you think we could add to the program to maybe help those kids? Do we do a surprise a day? Do we, and you don't want to put anybody in a bad situation, but, do you do something like, hypothetical situations?
That might be a thing.
Okay.
Based on your experience, things you've experienced along the way. I remember first year I forgot to order buses. Mm-hmm. And, who do you go to for, maybe a scenario? Sure. Okay, we're going to take a trip next week. You're going to order the buses, and that's all you tell them. And they have to figure out, well, who does that? Is it a person that work?
Yeah.
Because whenever you change jobs at any level, that's the stuff that is the steep learning curve.
Yeah.
Who does that? My last school, this person did programs. Who does it now? Who's the bookkeeper here, and how does that work? So I was fortunate in that I got to do a lot when I student taught, especially musically. And I was really fortunate. There were 3 bands at Lake Mary High School. And I mean, I met my supervising teacher at our state convention, and she goes, "You're going to take the 3rd band to the festival." Yeah, okay. I think I know what that means, but I did. She conducted 1 piece, and I did 2.
Okay.
And thank God she did sight reading, because that was the first thing. I'm like, please, no, I don't want to do sight. No. So she did. But student teachers let them do a lot, and because I taught high school for 8 years, and I only had 1 student teacher.
Okay.
And he was fantastic. And I did. All right, Mike, go and do.
So if we go to the college band director thing, one of the questions I gave you ahead of the time is what, as maybe a middle school band director or high school band director, what do we not realize about the college band directing profession? Are there any things there that might surprise us?
I don't know. I guess surprise would be the political landscape of higher ed. It's you would think you might have more control, but you actually have less.
Okay.
For instance, when I taught high school, I had, my last job, especially in Lakeland, we had lists of private teachers, and I had a big influence in that list. Hey, I think here's some people I think you should take lessons from. Or, clarinet player comes in. Hey, I want to start taking lessons. Awesome. I think you should go to this person. You teach college, the applied faculty is the applied faculty.
Okay.
I mean, I've been really fortunate to work with great applied teachers, but if for some reason you're somewhere and you don't like the way the low brass sounds and all those people are tenured, you can't do it. I think you really should go take trombone lessons with. It's not going to work. It's just not. So, there's that part of it. The other part is, I think sometimes the attitude is, well, you guys don't have to rehearse. It's just
sure.
Immediately phenomenal. No, we have to rehearse. We just have less time.
Yeah.
We have less time to rehearse. And, students may or may not be, quote unquote, into band. Mm-hmm. They might think, well, I'm going to be an orchestral musician. Why do I have to play in band? So I'm really happy to hear so many students at IU that have played in the wind ensemble say, when I ask them what their career goal is, they'll go, a lot of them will say, I just want to make a living playing my instrument. And I think that's awesome, because I hear an openness in that response. Because for my career goal at one point, I wanted to be a principal clarinet player in the Chicago Symphony. Okay, when would I have even had a chance to audition for that job? Well, when Larry Combs retired. And how many other people would have, applied? So they're being more open. I want to play in a symphony orchestra or a service band or military band. Awesome. Good. So they're being open to that, I think.
Okay. And then, kind of keeping on with this college band thing, what's the... my question all the time is of course with that, what is the role of the college band beyond what we assume? We assume that, as you're saying, we want them to be lifelong musicians. Sure. Maybe you've got some kids that are adults, I should say, in the school of business or medical majors, pre-med, something like that. In kind of today's world, what's that role? What's the college band doing? What should it be doing? That
was one of the questions you sent me, and one of our former Midwest board members, David McCormick, would always tell me every time he saw me, well, you guys playing at CBD&A and all your commissions and stuff, those non-major bands are where you really should spend your time and effort. And you think about it, he's got a point.
Okay.
For instance, my alma mater, Florida State, did a they did a renovation of their concert hall a number of years ago. So they sent out this pamphlet of all these giving opportunities. And I'm looking at all the levels, and I'd love to, but yeah, no, I can't afford any of this. But if you look at any college marching band, which is mostly non-majors, engineering, pre-law people, pre-med, all of these careers where they're going to go out in the private sector and business and really make money and have a huge influence that way. They're the ones that are going to be able to afford to drop a few $100,000 or millions of dollars. And it's not that all we want to do is cultivate future donors.
Sure.
But we want to cultivate consumers of music and people who still have a love for music and that will buy a season ticket subscription to the Chicago Symphony or wherever they are, go to concerts and still have a love for it.
Yeah.
I think that's where we want to make sure we're not shortchanging students.
And I get that. And there's always part of me too. This is a separate discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Just wish band wasn't so expensive.
Agreed. I know. I know. Yes. Because I live in Bloomington now, I went to DCI quarterfinals in Indianapolis, and I went to Grand Nationals BOA because I hadn't seen live drum corps in about a decade, and I almost don't recognize the activity anymore.
Sure.
But that's a separate topic. And especially at Grand Nationals, every group that came through the tunnel, I looked, and the first thing I thought was, how much does this cost? Just from physically what I saw, not to mention design and staffs, but I understand that there are programs who do that well and they have a balanced program. I mean, phenomenal jazz bands, chamber music, and a lot of some of those programs, music is strong, not just band. But I think for the money that they're spending on marching band, from everything that's involved in it, they could bring in the entire applied faculty of pick your university for a month and still have money left over.
Yeah.
And pay them their salary. They could. It's just a little bit frightening because my wife and I think, man, if it cost X amount to be in band, I may not have been in band when I was in high school. So hopefully people, if they charge that much, they're offering a way to offset it through fundraising. But I hated fundraising when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I hated it. Oh, we're going to sell band candles. Yeah, Mom, can you take this to get? I hated that stuff. I was not the kid who's like, hi, Mr. Stinson, my name's Rodney Dorr. I hated that. So it's expensive enough to have a good instrument.
Yeah.
Or if you're a clarinet player like I was, to consistently buy reeds and not have them work. So, yeah. So hopefully there's a way to... And I don't know what that way is, but hopefully there's an awareness when it starts to get to the point that, oh man, should we really charge this much?
Yeah.
And if we do, if there are people that don't participate, how can we include them? Well, okay, if you can't do marching band, you can still play in concert bands and your band fees only, your rental charge for your instrument or a uniform fee. But yeah, it's pretty crazy.
My district's very supportive. It's a low-income Title I school district. And 75% of the kids in our program use a school-owned instrument.
Oh, great.
Which is wonderful. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Joliet District 204. Yes. Then becomes the problem of, one of our things is we want the kids to play forever. Mm-hmm. And then right after graduation, they drop their instrument off. And I just pray that we've influenced them enough to go save up money for an instrument.
To go, yeah.
And then life hits and,
Yeah.
And at some point, I guess you ask yourself, how much control do we have?
Sure.
How much influence?
Yeah.
So again, appreciative for my school for that. here's the next thing. Like, I guess as you were saying, you hope at least they buy a ticket to the CSO
Sure.
or go see some community groups there or something.
Well, and access, at least access to music now is so quick.
Yeah.
I mean, in college, we like to say that, you get your music, you've practiced it, you come in with your part learned, and you listen to a recording. There was a time when I had to actually walk to the store to buy a CD.
Yeah.
Now you and I can pick up our phones and have a recording of almost anything.
Yeah.
Now, so hopefully, if they don't keep playing, that they continue to consume.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's kind of go and talk about your ideas about maybe the evolution of the band, because it's, we have concert bands, we have marching bands, we have our subsets of
Sure.
that. What's your opinion on maybe where we should go, or current programs that are happening that we should foster to continue to evolve?
I think competition is good and bad. I mean, we live in a competitive society.
Sure.
So this emphasis on competition, maybe say an overemphasis on competition, I think has hurt us in a number of ways. Number one, if we're talking, even judging music is a little bit strange, because it's almost like you're going to go downtown to the Art Institute and judge paintings. Which one's better? This one's a superior. This one's a good. So in an effort to have what we do be measurable, I think us band directors, there's sometimes an overemphasis on objective aspects of performance. Is it together? Yes or no? Is it in tune? Yes or no? Is the articulation uniform? Yes or no? And once we check all those boxes, I think sometimes we think we're done.
Okay.
But we're not done. Where does the music go? What is the shape? Does it have any kind of life? Does it have any kind of feeling? And those things, we know it when we hear it, but it's hard to quantify sometimes. If you and I are on a judging panel and we've got the sheet in front of us, and everything was subjective, that would be difficult. We have to have some of those things, but then, we get to a certain point. Is the performance going to move me? So I think when we're preparing and getting ready for all that, maybe we could call it, sometimes we teach to the test.
Okay.
We don't teach to the art. And one, you mentioned like my first job, I think I would expose my students to just more music, different kinds of music. Because, I think we get into, well, this'll work well because it doesn't expose my weaknesses. So that'll do well
Sure.
at contest or whatever. Well, if sometimes you just got to expose them. That's how people get better. That's how we get better. If we do everything that's safe, I can do this. I'm not very good at mixed meter. Well, do some mixed meter.
Yeah.
So I think we can work on just being music teachers instead of band directors. So, well, what if we did more? What if we did more concerts? What if students had less time to prepare? My high school students sandbagged all the time. When's the concert? Oh, it's August 1st. Okay, good. Got plenty of time.
Yeah.
And within reason, I've always thought if you give students, if they have 20 rehearsals, you'll get a result. And if they have 12 rehearsals, I think the result is not that different.
Okay.
It wouldn't be that different. And I know what people are thinking and saying, well, of course, you're at Indiana, blah, 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 blah. No, I think that human nature is the same at all levels. So,
and that's from a realistic standpoint.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
if you had one rehearsal, no, we're not going to.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So, if we can kind of keep maybe talking about competition a
Sure.
little bit, and not to challenge you on that at all, But do you think some of those things are different depending on cultural or socioeconomic background? And I say that from growing up in a place where I was a free reduced lunch kid. We go to these band competitions and we do well. And at that point in my life, like, it feels like we're legitimized.
Sure.
And I know that's not exactly what it is.
Sure.
But, you know, and many kids with much rougher situations than I had, you know, but where does that come into play? Is that something that we need to start kind of looking at and educating the public maybe a little bit more, that, you know, we know that these competitions are important to you, but we're trying to go maybe a more artistic route.
Sure.
We're trying to go a route of music for the sake of music.
Yeah. I think it might, some of it might be, and now I'm contradicting myself, but that's okay. Performance.
I'll edit it out.
Performance. It might be performance driven in a way. So for instance, if you're a high school band director, first or second week of class, if you're lucky, you have to have your product in front of the public.
Yeah.
No other teacher on campus besides the football coaches, cheerleading sponsor, and, you know, anything else associated with a football game has to have their class modeling what they've been taught after a week.
Yeah.
No one else does that. So I think some of it is up against a wall with performance. Okay, man. There's a student I'm thinking about right now, my first job. For whatever reason, got out of middle school and couldn't read bass clef. He's a trombone player. And I figured this out in the summer, but he was in marching band. He probably shouldn't have been in marching band because we got a lot done in the summer, reading bass clef and all. But he probably could have had more help. But then there's this, well, I need every trombone player I can find. Yeah. Okay, let's go. You know, couldn't read bass clef, and his teeth were so close together when he played. A B flat on his trombone was almost like a B natural. It was just so sharp. But I had him out there marching. Maybe that wasn't the best place for him, but I put him out there. So, you know, if I back myself up, maybe it's a performance is the problem sometimes. Okay. But then, you know, earlier I said we should do more concerts. Yeah. So, you know.
And I'm sorry, I didn't want to paint you in a corner.
No, but as I'm thinking about it, no, but it makes a lot of sense. And I do think that, I've seen a lot of change in this since I graduated. Sure. With, you know, music education is where, you know, the whole comprehensive music education route. And I think that's great. I mean, composing, I never did much of that, but elementary composing, yeah, maybe I should have when I was a kid, or my students should have done that. And it might have sparked an interest that maybe was there, but we didn't know. Yeah. So, yeah, it's difficult. Yeah. It's difficult because I do agree. Every community and every situation is different. Mm-hmm. You may have inherited something that was just totally out of control, and every weekend the kids are on the road or an all-day marching band camp. Yeah. Or maybe you think these kids need something competitive as a goal to work towards, and however well they do, we get feedback from outside people saying this is what you need to do to get better. And there's a standard to work towards where maybe there wasn't one before. So it's complicated. Yeah, man. It's just complicated.
Well, and, you know, as you said, every community is unique, you know, with those things. But at the same time, we all have musicians there and can be connected in that sense. Yes. And I know in the prep for this, every single interview and bio that I read on you, the words connections, bridging people together was in there. Yeah. So would you mind elaborating on that a little bit more? Maybe what you mean by that, and maybe some examples too of just some connections that you didn't think would happen or that maybe you look back on fondly?
Sure. I think the amazing thing about what we do, performing, groups of people performing any kind of music in any venue, choral, orchestral, instrumental band, is that there's groups of people working together towards a common goal with music involved. I was in, when I was an undergrad, I was in two fraternities, Kappa Kappa Psi, band service fraternity, and Phi Mu Alpha. And I think the thing that really separated those groups from others was and is music. Okay. There's music involved. We sang together. We played in groups together. So there's something about playing music with other people that has the capacity and potential, I think, to connect people. So you're working together through sound, and you're making this thing that exists in a different way when you're not playing. The music's on the page. It does exist. It's a piece, but it doesn't exist in sound until you play it. So what I try to do is number one, make connections with individuals, because, especially in college, I think it's easier for students to just kind of be anonymous in an ensemble. And especially in a school as big as I teach in now, I think it's really easy for those students they can come in, do their job, do it well, but the conductor really doesn't know who they are. So, I did this in a different way. I stole the idea of individual meetings from Mike Haithcock at Michigan.
Okay.
He does that with everyone who comes in the symphony band. He has a short meeting with them just to get to know them. He calls them, I think, his getting to know you meetings. Okay. And when I worked there, I didn't do that, but I got to know students in my way, because my office was down by the practice rooms. So just kind of going and coming in my day, I saw a lot of students. So I just, hey, Don, how you doing? Oh, God. What year are you in school? Oh, you're a freshman. Where are you from? Just to kind of get to know.
I see you going past the practice room, but not in the practice
exactly.
room.
Why, you're still sitting on this couch? Yeah. Okay. So, but when I went to Oregon, I said, I'm going to do this. Everybody's going to sign up for a time. I don't require it, but I just tell them I want to get to know you better. And I find where they're from. They play any other instruments, why they came to school here. What are their career goals? How can I help them achieve their career goals? And the last question I always ask them is, do they have any questions for me? So I get to know people, because I think that's important. And one of the things, I had a great conversation. I love conversations with Ray Kramer, because he's just so personable and such a warm human being. And one of the things he told me, he was on campus this fall. He said, I wanted to get to know the students in the wind ensemble as quickly as possible, because there's 5 other orchestras. And a lot of those orchestras have guest conductors that come in, swoop in, says it's a professional model, which I get. Yeah. But they don't get to know students. So he wanted to be able to see Don in the hall. Hey, Don, how you doing? And call you by name. And that kind of reinforced this thought that, okay, I'm going to keep doing this. This is a good thing. So if I can just get to know people, I think that's better, because I believe that when a teacher, a conductor, forgets that people are making the music, it's just all over. There's no chance for any connection at all. If you were just, I think you said you played trumpet. If you were just second trumpet, principal trumpet, and I don't know anything about you and don't make an effort to interact with you at all, I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
We're not professional conductors. We don't just swoop in and do, three rehearsals with a CSO and 3 concerts and we're out. We're we're teachers. And this connection thing, it's a little bit harder to build in college because people aren't hanging out in the band room before school, during lunch, after school, go home. I'm locking up. You got to leave. It's different. So if I can just spend 15 minutes with them and just talk with them and then, I take notes and try to remember something about them. So I think the teacher to student connection is the first one I want to make. And hopefully in this music making process, they can work together. Cause I try to approach full band like chamber music. And because I believe students, especially college students, when they're playing chamber music, their ears are engaged and they're totally responsible. There isn't this conductor person telling them what to do. I want them to listen to each other. And I'm never offended if, the flute player has passing off a solo with the oboe player. If the flute player is looking over at the oboe player and the oboe player is looking at them, I don't care. I'm not one of these people. You should be looking at me. So I don't care. If it sounds great and that connection's great. And I mean, here's a great example of this. Last night, there was this Northwestern SWE 50 concert. And there was someone in the brass section. I think it was maybe a euphonium player that had a solo last night. And they finished their solo and the euphonium player to their left just nodded at him and, man, that sounds great. And one of the bass trombone players looked over, man, that was awesome. That's what I'm talking about. That's wow.
It's nice sometimes to see some happy faces because no one smiled before like 1940.
I know.
Like pictures.
It was a different time, man. Different time.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
So, a few more questions here too. As we're kind of looking at closing up here soon, but
sure.
Music recommendations just to kind of help our audience a little bit.
Sure.
And I know everyone has their favorites and their favorites for a reason, but are there any maybe lesser known or lesser performed either composers or compositions that you might be able to recommend to somebody? To either perform or listen to.
Sure. There's a piece that I do with honor bands, sketches on a Tudor psalm, Fisher Tull. Yeah. And it's not played a lot. I did it with my high school band and it was really great. Another piece someone told me about, it's a gentleman in Florida, Joseph Crinus.
Okay.
He does a lot of orchestral transcriptions for band. He told me about this piece once. He said, there's this piece I think you ought to do. Okay. Theme in Fantasia by Armand Russell. Oh, okay. So I found the parts. Thank goodness it was still in print. And man, we played it and it was really, it's a great piece. It's different. It's not a 12-tone piece, but it starts out with these long extended whole note pitches and he takes those pitches and varies it throughout the piece. And so that was great. I'm also thinking of just some composers that I think people should know about. And these are people who are new and out there. Anthony Barfield is a composer. He's out of New York. He's really, really interesting. He went to Juilliard to study trombone. And he just dabbled in composing in school. He didn't go to Juilliard to study composition. He was in Joe Alessi studios, a trombonist. So on the side, he's just kind of, man, this composing thing's really neat. And there's a piece I really love. It's called Here We Rest, that actually started out as a trombone choir piece dedicated to victims of a tornado that went through Alabama. And he arranged it for full band. And it's just beautiful, really nice solos for various students. And there's another composer who I like a lot is Andrea Reichmeyer. She actually commissioned a piece for us at the University of Oregon. She's an Oregon grad, and I met her at the University of Michigan. And the we go back to thinking about expense, and the thing now with self-publishing composers, sometimes their music is expensive. as we go back to this whole, how much does it cost to be in band? It's either rental or it's expensive. Yeah. But the first two are not rental, and I believe they're still published. They're still in print. And Andrea did a piece called Dos Danzos, which is it's difficult, but it's pretty cool. But once again, with the internet, there's so much access to music. To just, I mention a name and you can just go online and there's a PDF score, you can listen to it, and you can pretty much, I remember back in the day, we had to wait for the albums to come from Carl Fisher or whoever. And there's a lot more access, and students have a lot of access to composers now. Students have a question about a piece. They just, let me just send John Mackey an email.
Yeah.
I didn't do that when I was in high school. So those are some things I can think of right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, to close out, you have had, of course, a great career so far, and I know we'll continue to. Not that you need the vote of confidence from me.
No,
but what are maybe some goals that you have, personal, professional, things with the music department there, maybe some bucket list items that you'd be comfortable sharing? Man,
I think the first things that come to mind are just pieces that I haven't done. Okay. Sometimes I feel like I'm behind. I'm just so far behind. Have you done this piece? No, I haven't. No, I haven't done it yet. And either just because either it hasn't been the right time or the right group, or where am I going to find, this many harp players? There was a piece last night. There was a Prokofiev piece. It had 4 pianos and 4 harps. In addition to the full band. Yeah, exactly. But I think so there's some pieces that I want to do. And this is very funny. We found out, maybe it was last week, that the concert band at IU is going to be playing at a division CBDNA conference at DePaul next spring. So now, the last regional, our symphonic band played, the second band. Now the concert band's going to play this. So I told somebody, I'm like, well, okay, now the pressure's on. Now I got to play at a convention. So, to continue getting the group off campus in appropriate ways that make sense for them. And somehow putting my own stamp on the organization. Okay. It's in great shape. They're fantastic people that have been the director of the wind ensemble at IU, and Steve Pratt still comes to concerts. We just opened a new marching band hall. It's named after Ray Kramer, as it should be. And how do I teach in a way that positively influences the students that come through that group? Mm-hmm. Because one of the things that having these meetings has done, which I didn't think would be a byproduct, especially the students at IU, every student I talked to, I felt a larger responsibility to them individually. And the next person who would tell me about, some festival that they went to or where they had been for their undergrad. And I was in the Eastman Wind Ensemble last year. And you feel more of a responsibility to them. Not that I feel a huge responsibility to Steve Pratt or Ray Kramer, but in a way I do. But that student sitting out in front of me, man, you are really outstanding. I can't get in your way.
Yeah.
I want to create an atmosphere here where you can flourish, where you're not dreading coming in the door every day. You don't feel like your time is being wasted. You don't feel like your talent's being wasted, and you don't feel like your humanity is being wasted. So, I mean, and that takes time. And man, it was my first year. It was a very good year. But, you know, it takes time to live through successive years and students and get more entrenched there. So I'm looking forward to that. It's not, you know, super specific. There are specific things like we want to do a conducting workshop. I want to get that going. Those are tangible things. But then there's the long haul of, you know, what's the influence? I mean, last night I went to this concert. There were almost 200 musicians who came back to play on this alumni concert at Northwestern. And
It was like a 4-hour concert.
oh my
too,
gosh,
right?
3 hours, 45 minutes. And it was just great. So you think about that and you think, okay, these people are training. A lot of them are training to be orchestral musicians. You're looking at that list, and these are people from the New York Philharmonic, Boston Symphony, San Francisco Symphony, who took the time to come back for a reunion, a band reunion.
Yeah.
So, you know, I want to have an atmosphere and an experience that people feel good about. That, man, you know, oh, you're playing at this place. You want me to be a soloist? Oh, I'd love to do that because I had such a great experience in wind ensemble at IU that I want to give back in that way. And so, I think that's kind of the long term thing that just boils down to a daily mantra of just treat people well.
I think that's a great place to end there.
Yeah,
that's
thanks.
a great quote to end on there. So, well, hey, I appreciate your time, Dr. Dorsey, and for coming out here.
No problem. It's
and,
great.
I know this will be an episode a lot of people will get a lot of great things from. So,
Hope so.
thank you very much.
Thank you.